He never lifted a trophy on his own, never scored the goal that made the headlines, never chased the cameras. He wasn't the poster boy of Don Revie's Leeds, but when football's brightest stars came hunting, Paul Reaney was the man who stopped them. For 16 years, he held the right flank like it was his own. Title races, cup finals, European nights that turned brutal. He was there in the glory, there in the grind. He wasn't built for noise, didn't fly into tackles to hear the roar, didn't stand over beaten wingers to gloat. He just arrived before danger did and removed it without fuss. The greats noticed. George Best, who could humiliate anyone, once said, "There were two, Paul Reaney from Leeds and Sanchez from Real Madrid. They were both quick and liked to get stuck in." When his time at Elland Road ended, no farewell, no big send-off. Just a quiet walk away from the shirt he'd worn for everything. If you still believe football should remember the men who stopped legends without needing to shout subscribe. Paul Reaney, the unshakable wall of Leeds United. Paul Reaney was born on 22nd October 1944. Fulham, London, Jamaican father, Irish mother, mixed heritage in a country still finding its tolerance. Decades later, he would become one of the first non-white players to represent the England men's team, a quiet pioneer, long before the milestone was widely recognized. His family moved north while he was still young. Leeds became home. The streets were his first pitch. Bare knees, scuffed boots, a ball that never stopped rolling. He joined the Leeds schoolboys. Quick feet, sharp mind, already reading danger before it arrived. Don Revie's scouts took note. He joined the club as an apprentice. 1962, he broke into the first team, playing 35 league games in 1962 to 63, second division. Leeds were mid-table in the second division, chasing stability rather than silverware. Reaney, just 18 years and 3 months old, stepped into senior football with a calm beyond his years. By the 1963 to 64 season, he was part of the Leeds side that stormed to the second division title. Promotion to the top flight secured. Leeds finished level on 61 points with Sunderland, but secured the title on goal average, a sign of the defensive steel that would become their trademark. It wasn't just a win, it was the start of an era. And for Reaney, the climb to football's highest level had truly begun. By the mid-60s, Leeds United were changing. Don Revie was building something new, a side as hard to break as it was to beat. Paul Reaney slotted in like he'd been designed for it. Right back, quick over the first yards, timing perfect in the tackle. 1964 to 65, his first season in the first division. Leeds had just returned to the top flight for the first time since the 1950s. Few expected them to trouble the elite. They shocked the country. Second place in the league. FA Cup final at Wembley. Reaney marked Liverpool's Peter Thompson that day. No easy task. The match went to extra time. Liverpool won 2-1. Defeat, but Leeds had arrived. Revie trusted him completely. While others looked for flash, Reaney kept the game tight. In 1965 to 66, he played 46 games in all competitions. Helped Leeds finish second again. Opponents started to notice. He wasn't just quick, he read the winger's intentions before the ball came. By 1967 to 68, he was part of a backline with Jack Charlton, Norman Hunter, and Terry Cooper. That season brought silverware the League Cup and the Intercities Fairs Cup. Leeds beat Arsenal 1-0 in the League Cup final at Wembley, then beat Ferencváros over 2 legs to win their first European trophy. Reaney had gone from teenage debutant to an essential part of one of England's meanest defences, and he wasn't even 24. The late 60s were brutal. The league was stacked with talent. Every week brought a new winger looking to make their name. Paul Reaney's job was to erase them. 21st January 1967, Elland Road. Leeds United versus Manchester United. George Best, the most gifted winger of his generation, came hunting. Reaney stayed tight, matched him stride for stride, denied him space. Jack Charlton scored the only goal. Leeds won 1-0. Best left frustrated and later admitted Reaney was one of the very few he truly respected. By then, Reaney's consistency was drawing praise across the country. 1968 to 69 Leeds finally claimed their first league title. Only 26 goals conceded in 42 matches, a defensive record that stood for decades. Reaney played in 41 of those games. No fuss, no headlines, just flawless defending. The early 70s brought more. Another Intercities Fairs Cup in 1971, a runners-up in the league, and FA Cup. And through all of it, the right flank of Leeds' defense remained locked down because Reaney was still there. 11th December, 1968, Wembley Stadium. England versus Bulgaria. European Championship qualifier. Paul Reaney sat on the bench, watching the winter mist drift over the pitch. 11th December, 1968. His first England cap. A 1-1 draw with Bulgaria at Wembley. Not just a debut, but a landmark. 2 more caps followed. On 10th December 1969, he started in a 1-0 win over Portugal at Wembley. 3rd February 1971. Empire Stadium, Gira. Malta 0, England 5. A comfortable win, but for Reaney, another moment in the shirt that every boy dreamed of. Competition for places was fierce. England had fullbacks like Keith Newton and Tommy Wright, but those who watched closely knew Reaney had the pace, the timing, and the composure to belong at that level. He may not have been a fixture in Ramsey's side, but he'd broken through a barrier that few even realized existed. 6 May 1972, Wembley Stadium. FA Cup Final. Leeds United versus Arsenal. 100,000 packed into the stands, the air thick with cigarette smoke and tension. For Leeds, this was a chance to finally lift the trophy that had slipped from their grasp in 1965 and 1970. Paul Reaney was there on the right of defense. No mistakes, no nerves. 53rd minute, Mick Jones crossed from the right. Alan Clark rose and headed past Bob Wilson. 1-0. Leeds held on. The whistle blew. Don Revie's men finally had their FA Cup, and Reaney had played every minute of the campaign. That season, he also helped Leeds to a second-place league finish, missing out on the double by just 1 point. The early 70s were his peak. League titles in 1968-69 and 1973-74. The 1971-72 FA Cup, League Cup, and 2 Intercities Fairs Cups already in the bag. By now, he'd faced every great winger in Britain and left most of them beaten. December 1970. A cold afternoon against West Ham United. A late challenge sent Paul Reaney to the turf. The diagnosis, a broken leg. For a player built on pace and timing, it could have been the end. The collision came a single moment that left Leeds without their defensive cornerstone, but Reaney refused to let it be the full stop. Months of rehab. Endless drills. The same discipline that made him dependable in defense now drove him through the grind of recovery. By the 1971-72 season, he was back and lifting the FA Cup at Wembley. He stayed at Leeds until 1978, 16 years in the first team, over 740 appearances in all competitions, more than 550 in the league. When his time at Elland Road ended, there were no fireworks. Just quiet respect from those who understood how much of Leeds' golden era had been built on the stability of players like him. In 1978, Paul Reaney left Elland Road. He joined Bradford City, bringing top-flight experience to a side fighting in the lower leagues. From 1978 to 1980, he made 38 league appearances, steadying their defense, mentoring younger players, and showing the same professionalism he'd carried all his career. Then came something different. In 1980, he moved to Australia to play for Newcastle KB United in the NSL 53 League games in 1981. It was a late career adventure, a new culture, new pitches, and the same old standards. When he finally hung up his boots, there were no headlines, just a reputation intact, built on loyalty, discipline, and quiet excellence. After retiring, Paul Reaney stayed close to the game. He worked as a coach, passed on his defensive craft to young players, and later became involved in Christian ministry, speaking at events and using his story to inspire. In May 2025, Leeds United honored him with their Lifetime Achievement Award. Presented on the 4th of May 2025, in a pre-match ceremony at Elland Road, met with a standing ovation that seemed to last forever. These days, he's often seen in the stands on match days, shaking hands with fans, sharing a quiet word, carrying the same approachable dignity he showed on the pitch. Not for goals scored, not for chasing the spotlight, but for the years of service that helped turn Elland Road into a fortress. Today, at 80 years old, he remains a beloved figure among Leeds fans often seen at club events, his presence still carrying the quiet dignity that defined him on the pitch. He played through one of the most intense eras of English football, marking legends, lifting trophies, and setting standards few could match. Subscribe if you still believe football should honor the men who stood tall without needing to shout. Reaney, the quiet sentinel of Elland Road.